the
Boy,
loss
that's
of that
almost a full
one.
week.
Yeah, and it's interesting because you can get this fatigue debt built so deep, it's kind of like a credit card debt, and you try to pay it back, with one, you can't do it.
Yeah.
It's a negative. So people chronically are fatigued because of a lack of sleep, and of course that can get into your day and make you stressed and angry and edgy. Up to 60% are gluten sensitive, which is shocking to me because it's everywhere.
It is everywhere. And we know that that tendency to be celiac can actually be in the genes.
Totally.
However, just because you're born with a certain set of genes doesn't mean you have to have a negative outcome.
Let's talk about a new system. Well, they're bringing it on us, right? They've 90% of all the central banks globally, they're going to come in with messaging like this is the amazing white knight on a shiny horse coming in to save the day, right? Well, no.
Getting a good night's sleep is very important for optimal health. And that's a question that we get asked all the time is what can we do to improve sleep at night so we can actually wake up rested?
Yeah, and interestingly enough, about 75% of all doctors' visits have fatigue as one of the complaints. So obviously, we're not getting good sleep. Remember, this is like a few years back, we developed this term called fatigue debt. Remember that?
I do remember
interesting,
that.
if a person doesn't get one good night's sleep, if they have one poor night's sleep, it actually takes 5 good nights' sleep to make up for the
Boy,
loss
that's
of that
almost a
one.
full week.
Yeah, and it's interesting because you can get this fatigue debt built so deep, it's kind of like a credit card debt, and you try to pay it back, with one, you can't do it.
Yeah.
It's a negative. So people chronically are fatigued because of a lack of sleep, and of course that can get into your day and make you stressed and angry and edgy.
Yeah, a couple of things that I talked to him about is number one, it's probably not a good idea to take a late afternoon nap because you might not go down to sleep at night.
Yeah.
And then number two would be make sure that you get on a regular sleep schedule. It might be hard to put yourself down regularly at 9 o'clock because you want to stay up and watch the last of the series of TV series that you're finally trying to get caught up with.
Yeah.
But that's not conducive for getting a good night's sleep.
Well, it's not. I mean, even here in the studio, there's lights everywhere, right? So, obviously this is daytime, so it wouldn't be unusual to have lights. But the idea behind this is what disturbs sleep is this ambient light that's around at a time where it's supposed to be dark. And so we have a bunch of white lights, bright lights. The white and the blue lights emit like the computer screen, a temperature sort of directionally on our eyeballs at 5,500 Kelvin.
Oh boy, that's hot.
That's hot, but compare it
It's
to
like
the
hotter than
noonday
the
sun,
sun.
3,500 degrees Kelvin. So the white lights on our eyes, so actually, it causes cortisol to go up when melatonin is supposed to be building, and so that whole disturbs your sleep. And then a lot of times you can actually correct that with some blue blocker glasses, right? I've got some in my office I'll put on
blue blocker
sometimes.
glasses on later in the day or
Yep.
when they get home at night.
You can, and I put them on one day, and it looks like Bono or something like that, putting them on. No, but the bottom line is they actually do cause
that guy?
yellow tint, and so night lights around the house, yellow or red, not white, because when you get up in the middle of the night, to go to the bathroom or something like it, because it's disturb the sleep.
Yeah, so developing a nighttime routine is a good thing. When you come home at night, start turning the noise down, maybe turn the TV down after 6 o'clock or the music down, start turning the lights down, or maybe have a softer lighting in the house. If you have those glasses, you might put those glasses on if you're watching TV. It's just
At least
so
you look cool.
You're starting to sanitize getting ready for bed and getting your mind settled down so that the proper hormones are produced at the proper times when you put your pillow down on the pillow at night.
Yeah, and really, people need to know you're supposed to be really getting about 4 sleep cycles completed per night, and they take about an hour and a half to complete, and then about a 15 to 30 minute transition between the ones. So that's where experts get to 7.5 to 8 hours, right? But the bottom line is, if we don't get that, we're going to be perpetually in a state of fatigue, and we take a lot of things to help us sleep. Talk about some of the things you take.
Well, one of my favorites at the top of the list, of course, is progesterone. In the aging female, progesterone is the first hormone to drop low, and progesterone happens to be the hormone of deep sleep. So for me, optimal progesterone levels are like imperative.
Yep.
Number 2 is I like this amino acid called L-theanine, up to about 400 milligrams at night, in combination with magnesium buffered chelate, up to about 300 milligrams at night. And then I also like to top that off with melatonin. And I've worked my way up to 10 milligrams of melatonin, and that works really well with that little concoction or combination.
Now, I know some people out there thinking, well, I heard, again, another myth buster time for you. I heard that if you take melatonin that you would shut off your own production. Well, guess what?
Not true.
The pineal gland, actually, little third eye back here, produces melatonin pretty well until we're about 35, 40 years old, and then it just goes off the deep end. So actually taking melatonin as you age becomes more protective, more antioxidant, more anti-inflammatory, and more anti-carcinogenic. Pretty cool. So, I'll take probably somewhere around the, 25, 30 milligrams of melatonin because I'm not one that needs progesterone. Men don't need to take that. It becomes inflammatory if we take too much. And I like L-theanine. I also like another amino acid called glycine. If you take a couple grams of glycine powder, that can help deepen sleep. There are other products out there, the full spectrum hemps. Those actually with CBD, the cannabidiols, those can help you sleep as well and relax. There's some people out there that take, the full-fledged, cannabis that has THC in it, and that can help as well.
I've also noticed that for me, not eating late, like not after 6 o'clock, so that
Bingo.
my stomach isn't really full and heavy when I lay down to go to sleep, that's also very effective for getting a good night's sleep. The room temperature can also be a very important thing. We keep our room temperature at about 65 degrees,
Yep.
sometimes even cooler, depending upon the heat of what the noonday sun has brought over the household.
That's really important because a lot of people complain about being hot. If you turn the thing down a little bit, in the 60s, that's where it's supposed to be, you're actually going to sleep better. That's where optimum sleep is. And it's very difficult to sleep if you're hot, you're sweating, and everybody knows that. I think that, it's important that people start putting some effort with intentionality into this sleep hygiene process we're talking about.
Yes, I've also really come to know, especially past the 50-yard dash line, that drinking caffeine late in the day is not a really good idea. If you're born with a slow metabolic system on metabolizing caffeine anyway, and then past that 50-yard dash line, meaning over 50 years old, oftentimes we become a little bit more sensitive to caffeine, and it's still hanging around. That mid-afternoon cup of coffee can still be hanging around late in the days.
She's really in her 40s. She just kind of gave you guys some encouragement right there.
So avoiding that caffeine later in the day is essential.
Yeah, and give yourself a gap between your last meal and bedtime. And optimally it's 3 hours or so, but some people, if you can even give it 2 hours, it's better, because if you have a lot of food stuck in the gut here, it's going to create a lot
for reflux
of
too.
yeah, it's going to really mess your sleeping. So with sleep though, seriously folks, put some effort into that, because it is underappreciated. And for the business people out there, it's not a waste of time. It's actually really good. So, hey, want some of these tips, you can reach out to us and we'll make sure to get you squared away. Stick around. You don't have to eat that bread.
And when you navigate through these economies with people, here's what happens. We want to hold their hand through it, let them know when it's time to buy, sell, reallocate, get out of Dodge. Because a lot of times when you're struck with fear does two things. Number one, it can paralyze, and people just put their head in the sand and say, I'm just going to forget about it and hopefully it gets better. Or it causes you to make a wrong decision. And this is why we are here, is to help people navigate through the political quagmire nonsense that's going on, the economic malaise, and the absolute collapse that we're seeing. And when our freedoms are eroding, our political freedoms, our economic freedoms, our personal freedoms, our religious freedoms, our health freedoms, they're all tied together. But you know what doesn't need to erode with that? Our finances.
KirkElliottPhD.com/Sherwood.
Hey friends, you already know the answer to this, but we'll ask you anyway. If you stay away from your favorite junk food for a month and then go back to supersizing it, will your health improve?
Well, that's the thing about change. To change, we have to be as consistent as possible.
And when we go back to an old habit, it's not the end of the world. We just get back at the new habit.
Before you know it, real transformation is evident to you and others.
That's why we offer a bunch of helpful bonuses when you subscribe to Kingdom Fuel.
Kingdom Fuel is our complete nutritional meal shake.
It's the simple start to a transformed life, and we'll auto ship every month so you don't run out.
You'll receive 2 free shaker cups, free access to our video courses, and a monthly call with us filled with practical inspiration.
Just see the link below or on your screen and subscribe today.
The body's amazing at recovery, so you want to give it every chance, no matter what time it is. So in that context, no, it's certainly never too late. You're never too old to start trying to be healthy.
No matter where you are in terms of your health, that you can turn this around.
It's never too late to start a wellness program, and it's never too late to reach your healthcare goals. There's an old adage, and I'm not sure where it came from, but I really do like it. And they say the best time to plant a tree is 20 years ago. The second best time is today.
We just want people to hang on to hope.
We are hope dealers. And if you are not paying attention to the 4 foundational pillars of health, physical, emotional, intellectual, and spiritual, eventually it is going to catch up.
If we get all those 4 areas right, and we do it right, we see a dynamic occur in the middle called wellness, and that's where people get better. Their health is really going to return as a side effect of wellness. Remember that other night when we were ordering our meal and the waitress says, "I'm coming back with the bread," and off she went. And of course, she came back with the bread, and we started looking around at everybody just devouring this bread. Remember that?
Oh, yeah. You know, I'm a chronic people watcher. It's kind of fascinating to me how before the meal even comes to the table, certain tables will actually be on their second serving of bread.
It truly, I catch her
Or
staring
chips.
at people, and I'm like, "Don't stare." And she's like, "But I like to watch people." I'm like, "Yeah, but don't stare because they're going to see you
Just
watching them."
curious.
Well, I know.
Just
but
curious.
I just like kind of freaks me out sometime. But anyway, the bottom line is, we saw people just literally chowing down on this bread, and I was kind of thinking through that a little bit on how that bread is really something that probably hurting them pretty bad, isn't it?
Well, in the clinic, we always look at basal metabolic rate. And the majority of basal metabolic rate never get over 1,900 calories. And we know that in one small little bitty loaf of bread, if you're putting the butter and the margarine or the oil on top of it, you've exceeded 3,000 calories before your dinner gets to the table.
Yeah, and a lot of times the bread, I mean, we don't think about these refined wheat products that are really kind of the constructive means of the bread. The
They call it
protein in the bread,
genetically modified.
they have, and the wheat kernel, if you will, has 3 types of protein. It's got wheat, it's got gluten, and it's got gliadin. I mean, most people probably heard about the gluten concept, but interestingly enough, we've heard of this thing called celiac disease.
Yeah, oh, yes.
Everybody has, but there's
It's
only
on
like
the rise.
2 or 3% of the whole population is celiac disease, but up to 60% are gluten sensitive, which is shocking to me because it's everywhere.
It is everywhere. And we know that that tendency to be celiac can actually be in the genes.
Totally.
However, just because you're born with a certain set of genes doesn't mean you have to have a negative outcome. Now, if we know that and we keep putting that toxin on the system and we barrage it, especially with the genetically modified agent, it's going to get us to that disease quicker and faster. It may not be 40 or 50 when it shows up. It might be 19 or 20. or even younger.
We test a ton of people genetically speaking. If you're that science geek out there and you're saying, well, what do genetics say about that? Well, there's two different enzymes. One is called HLA-DQ2 and HLA-DQ8. If you're wondering what they stand for, human leukocyte antigen. Big word, but just HLA-DQ2 and 8. But the bottom line is, when those things are regulated a certain way, we don't break down gluten. And a lot of people really don't break it down. It becomes this long-term, highly potentially debilitating chronic thing that can happen, and people can't give it up. That blows my mind.
That's right. So they can be highly intolerant because they can't break it down. They can be allergic to it, which is a certain type of immune reaction, or they could be sensitive to it. So building on these different things, we need to think about different alternatives that we can actually do to get this gluten and this bread out of our life if it's the problem. What do you think those would be?
Well, there's a couple, but let's don't forget the addictive properties here. The new genetically modified protein that contains the gluten and gliadin specifically, those actually create chemicals when they go into our gut. Remember that?
Oh,
They're
yes.
called
It's like
exorphins, EXORPHINS. They actually bind to the opioid receptors, and we know about the opioid crisis in the U.S. here. But bottom line is, it's kind of sad because it does make people feel good. It takes the pain away for a little bit, and that's why people can't stop.
So it's kind of like a drug.
Totally.
So instead of just one piece, it's 2 pieces, 3 pieces, 4 pieces, or maybe even 2 loaves.
You nailed it. That's why the restaurants do that. They're not stupid. They don't use the term addiction. They use the term craveability, and they create this process so you'll come back. And that's why restaurants, they're going to give you free bread and chips because they want to maximize the addictive potential so that you'll think it's a great place and want to come back. We've got to make some changes here.
So it's like the right amount of sweetness, the right amount of saltiness, the right amount of doughiness makes people want to come back. And if we have to eat every day, it's harder to break an addiction to bread or these things that have these toxic chemicals in it, gliadomorphins, gluten, than it is an addiction to drugs then.
Well, it really is. And the bottom line is, we've dealt with people a long time, and I know this is one of our great frustrations. Somebody's like super sick, their gut lining is so tore up. They've developed autoimmune conditions because they won't stop eating these breads that contain high amounts of gluten because it's so addicting. And then they can develop autoimmunity of the colon, like a colitis or something like Crohn's. And that's a bad deal. And we see that happen all the time. We've seen it happen in family members. We've seen it happen in friends, and they just won't stop. And it's like, what are we doing with that? But we've got to give them alternatives, right? You agree with that.
Absolutely. So we know a few alternatives that people can do besides just going for the bread. There are things like cloud bread. We can use almond flour in our bread. We can literally make a loaf of bread out of almond flour, coconut flour, keep it completely gluten-free.
Yep.
Those that are not completely allergic, intolerant, or sensitive to it and just want to moderate their system and not create this GI intestinal permeability or leaky gut, so to speak, they could even go for the sprouted grains.
That's right. Well, when you think about cloud bread, there's recipes out there like everywhere. And so, again, it's egg whites, almond flour, coconut flour, and then there's cauliflower crust in some pizzas. There's
that's kind of genius.
Cauliflower wraps that people are having as a place of these breakfast wraps. Brilliant stuff to sub in there, and eventually you won't lose the taste and the sort of culture of that, that we have, and you can still maintain your taste, but you can avoid the addiction and avoid, a lot of these things can be rebuilt with the construction of the gut.
So you're saying with these, we can avoid the health consequences if we choose healthy alternatives.
We can, and we really need to know kind of what is up with that and test the right things we can test for that. So if you're curious out there and you say, well, am I sensitive to gluten? Reach out to us. We can help you out and give you some good alternatives. Up next, our financial guru, Kirk Elliott, gives us advice on what you need to know at this time in history.
Let's get real. Most emergency food is just as bad for you as any other choice in the standard American diet. And that's just sad.
We don't just need food. We need highly nutritional food.
We don't just want to survive food shortages. We are meant to thrive in adversity.
Complete your daily nutrition and have shelf-stable Kingdom Fuel as a cornerstone of your food supply.
Don't sacrifice your health or your taste buds.
Stock up on Kingdom Fuel now.
Hello, I'm Kevin Sorbo. Now, there's an old saying, it's not what you know, but who you know that matters. Now, that's true in our careers, spiritual life, and when it comes to our health and overall well-being. Today, most of us know a lot of information about health and nutrition, but are we really doing anything with it? So here's what I've learned from working with doctors Michele and Mark Sherwood. They're the founders of the Functional Medical Institute. You need a wellness plan that's customized based on your unique needs. Now remember, real change can only happen when you address the whole person. That is exactly what Mark and Michele do, and why they are people you should know. They'll help you discover what you need to experience transformation. Find out at sherwood.tv/Sorbo. That's sherwood.tv/Sorbo, or just see the link below. Have a great day and God bless.
I could use your assistance.
Okay,
Jesus. Huh? My name is Jesus.
Sure. Jesus.
Jesus is here today.
You looking for a job?
Yes, sir.
You and Mark have 45 days before the bank forecloses.
Not to worry. They do not call me by God Byron for nothing. The collection plate starts to be passed around. Mark reaches into the basket and shouts, "You and your family are the winner from the first church of the lotto." Kind of think of it like a high-stakes bingo night every Sunday.
Poopy diaper!
Poopy diaper!
This video of the diaper is going viral right before our eyes.
This is a miracle.
What is?
Friends of Faith has over 300,000 followers.
Oh my dad! That's more followers than Moses had.
Jesus! Take the wheel!
Just say it.
No,
Stop
take the wheel!
I got it, buddy.
Hey, Mark, it's great to be with you again. And we've all been talking about the globalists and their plans for a big global reset and what that means for a long time now. Well, starting on January 16th, for 1 week, they were all meeting the G7, the G20, the IMF, the World Economic Forum. All the big globalist policy leaders globally were meeting in Davos, Switzerland, like they do every single year. They had this confab, right? So what were they talking about, right? Well, before they even met, their notes came out, the outline. This is what we're going to talk about to all you people that are here, right? All the globalists, and we've got Republicans and Democrats and politicians there. They're all meeting. And what are they talking about? What did they talk about, right? So according to the World Economic Forum website, these are the topics. And again, like I've said before, words have meaning, right? So let's listen to these words. They're bullet points. They're going to address the current energy and food crisis in the context of a new system for energy, climate, and nature. They're going to address the current high inflation, low growth, high debt economy in the context of a new system for investment, trade, and infrastructure. Address the current industry headwinds in the context of a new system for harnessing frontier technologies for private sector innovation and resilience. They're going to address the current social vulnerabilities in the context of a new system for work, skills, and care. And they're going to address the current geopolitical risk in the context of a new system for dialogue and cooperation in a multipolar world. It's like, what's all this talk about a new system? Well, they're bringing it on us, right? 90% of all the central banks globally are now starting to issue central or going down the path of a central bank digital currency. Now, they're going to come in with messaging like this is the amazing white knight on a shiny horse coming in to save the day, right? Well, no, this is not what it's about. All that a central bank digital currency is cryptocurrency. It's a digital version of the paper money that they already print. However, so they can print just as many dollars as they want, right? Or as many yen or as many euro as they want. they can issue as many digital version of that currency as well, because there's no tangible backing behind it. So it's going to do nothing to address the inflationary pressures. But here's the deal, Mark. For, the old saying, never let a good crisis go to waste. Okay. Nobody would want a system where your digital social profile, what you spend money on, what your religion is, who you donate to, what church you give to, what political party you give to, how you spend your money, have you been vaxxed or not vaxxed, right? All of this is part of our digital social profile. And if they don't like it, because it's programmable money, they have the authority to shut off your ability to buy or sell. This is what a digital social profile attached to a central bank digital currency does. So when they're talking about a new system, this is the system they're talking about. How do I know that it's not some other system? Because further on in their notes, they talk about how this is going to be a new normal, how they have to talk about a global coalition for digital safety, because there's big efforts that we need to tackle here. They need to talk about applying human rights to the digital world. Why? Because they know that their system is going to strip away our privacy, our freedom, and our rights. And so they need to talk about how are we going to tackle this when we're going to have a ton of opposition from stripping people of their freedom and their privacy completely. So this is what's going on politically. And all of our investments, Mark, are a combination of some puzzle pieces. The political puzzle piece, the economic puzzle piece, the social puzzle piece, right? They all get put together. And this is what I do and what we do at our firm is put those puzzle pieces together and strategically put together a system to get out of the path of this hurricane and safely reallocate to get out of the system where you're not just a digital number, where your programmable money can shut you off from buying or selling, right? So how do you do that? With tangible assets like gold and silver that not only have we talked about in the past how they're great investments. I mean, they're booming, but they're also in this respect, also instrumental in protecting your religious freedom, your personal freedom, your political freedom, your economic freedom, your health freedom, because it's private. They're private transactions. So call our office. Mark, you and I talk a lot about this, and every one of the viewers should give us a call because we can strategically map out. It's a free consultation, your strategy for success so you can thrive. And all you have to do is go to kirkelliottphd.com/Sherwood, or you can just give our office a call, 720-605-3900, and say Dr. Mark sent you.
Let's get real. Most emergency food is just as bad for you as any other choice in the standard American diet. And that's just sad.
We don't just need food. We need highly nutritional food.
We don't just want to survive food shortages. We are meant to thrive in adversity.
Complete your daily nutrition and have shelf-stable Kingdom Fuel as a cornerstone of your food supply.
Don't sacrifice your health or your taste buds.
Stock up on Kingdom Fuel now.